I'm sorry, Tim.
I went to Armstrong. What's the worst thing that could happen up there? He told me. I wrote it at 13. What happened in 13?
Oh, that was the aborted mission? Or that was Houston, we have a problem, that thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Tom, we went through this. And Armstrong gave you the narrative because you wrote, go back, sit back.
All right, wait a minute. Okay.
So
that never happened either. 13.
Of course. No, Tom, we went to the moon after that completely.
Yeah, okay, couldn't have. Yeah, that's right. Okay. Oh, yeah, okay. All right. Tim, come on.
Okay, fine. Why'd you do 13? How did you do 13? Why was it a tragedy? What was the thinking there?
Because we needed a disaster.
Why? Because no one was watching? I mean,
to just end all missions in the future.
They didn't end the missions. What are you talking about?
To the moon, I mean.
Tom, don't go off the rails. They did it because no one was watching. You had to make them care again. Nothing makes people care than a near-death experience.
All right, okay.
From the top. From the top. Why'd you do 13 that way?
Well, we made it a disaster for ratings. To put it in, that's it in a nutshell.
Well, don't give it to me in a nutshell. Tell me the story. Tom, we're in the finish. We're in the finish.
Nobody was watching.
Tell me the story. So, okay. Tell me the story. Okay, 12 disaster. Tell the story. Go. 12 was a ratings disaster. Blah, blah, blah. Tell the story.
Yes,
Go.
12 was a complete freaking ratings disaster. We needed something to get the audience back, so we invented a real disaster. That's what Apollo 13 was. It was intended as a fucking disaster. That's what it was. That's why we did it that way.
Okay. Did NASA like that right away? Was there problems with the failure idea with the government? Did everyone approve it? I mean, was everyone in on that? I mean, was that the solution everyone liked?
Yeah, they were in on it. Everybody at NASA.
No, did they like it? Or did they think it was, I mean, you're basically having them fail to get people interested again. But wouldn't that...
It's ironic, isn't it? But true. Yeah.
Okay.
We had to have a failure to bring people back.
Okay. And I guess, and they did, they certainly watched that. That was a huge ratings hit.
No, it was not.
People watched 13 once the crisis started. What are you talking about?
When the crisis started, yes, they did.
Right.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. So the near-death experience was just for obviously a ratings manipulation, and it worked, obviously.
Right. I mean, nobody was watching until that happened.
Yeah.
Then everybody was watching.
I mean, they didn't even...
People
I don't think
a crisis.
Right, they didn't show even the launch. I don't think the networks did not show the
No, they didn't. It was just too boring at that point. People didn't care.
And you were spending billions of dollars.
That's why we had to have a disaster.
Okay, but they couldn't die.
No, they could not die. That would have been too much.
Yeah. Okay.
But especially since they would have been seen walking around probably somewhere.
Right, because you'd have to kill them in real life.
Yes, you'd have to kill them in real life.
Okay,
I wouldn't put above NASA.
Sure, or the government.
Right.
Okay. All right, so you did 11, and do you have any, help on 13?
Yeah, Neil helped a lot.
How?
I'm sorry, Tim.
How? Use your brain. Don't forget what I said. How would an astronaut help you?
Well, because Neil had been there,
right,
several times before. He knew all the ins and outs, all the details, and gave us all the minutia that we needed to.
But what did you ask him? I don't understand. How did he help? What did he give you? Just
Yeah, technical shit. What can go wrong? Tell us what possibilities.
I went to him and I said, Neil, what would be the biggest fucking anger? Tell me a story. You're doing okay, but you got to do the story thing, man. You're just reporting.
I know enough about this.
Everything you're saying, just telling a story thing. I asked Neil, what are all the things that could go wrong with it? And then he told me. And that's what we made 13
so
from.
I don't have to say what he said?
No, I'm not ever asking you to say moon shit.
All right.
Not ever. Just tell the human story. Okay, go. How'd you make 13 then?
Well, I went to Neil, and he was very cooperative since he had been there, quote unquote. several times before, he knew all the ins and outs, and he just told us what could go wrong, all the possibilities of what
I
could
said to him,
go
we're
wrong.
talking. Bring us to the conversation, okay? I said, hey, Neil, if you were up there and then think, what would be the worst thing, you know? And he said some little alarm button on the left that's red go off, and if that thing, he would shit his pants, you know, da da da. And so I wrote it around that, and you know, and coming back in like the little capsule thing, like you don't have to use technical terms. Be like, he said some whatever it's called, and that, you know, so I structured. It's so simple.
Okay, all right.
Go. So what was the Armstrong? What was his contribution? I mean,
Well, I just asked him.
look here.
I asked him, since he had all this experience, this faked experience, but just the same was experience, what could go wrong? What could possibly go wrong on a mission? And, you know, he explained, I don't know, a blown fuse or something, whatever he said. He gave us all the minutia we needed, and just followed his instructions.
But you had actually, I guess you added the emotional arc of it.
Yes.
Yeah, whether
we had to rehearse a lot.
Okay. And so
Lovell especially was, you know, not doing his part well, but
okay.
After some work, yeah.
Okay. And so
He brought it along and pulled it off.
okay, so you do these missions, you fake it, you shoot it in Nevada, you get paid, and you get to make. Well, and so what did they give you for all this work? I mean, what was your compensation?
It was very nice. They gave me.
Tom, you're not totally out of the light. I know you're pouring a drink, so just do it quickly.
Yeah.
Quickly, because you're out of the lights. Just get it together. Well, you're completely out of the lights. Just do it. You know. Okay. All right. Go. And just. I know you only have a little time left because you're getting drunk. So just let's get it out. Boom. So tell me. So
my compensation could not have been better.
Tell me.
I got carte blanche. Any movie I made in the future could be made free without any interference, my way, start to finish. And on top of that, I was about to make Barry Lyndon, and I needed a lens that they had. They had this special lens that they used to photograph the moon, and it was perfect for the visuals I planned for Barry Lyndon. It was absolutely the most beautiful photography ever.
Okay, so
it was all because of a lens that they let me borrow and was never used again in a movie.
Okay, so after so did you have any moral problems in the years following this experience? No, you did a bunch of movies, and then the Neil thing.
Not yet.
So did you have any problems afterwards?
That point.
No, start from the top. So did you have any problems after the experience? Like you went to make Barry Lyndon, did it weigh heavy on your soul or conscience, this whole moon fraud?
No, not at that point. It wasn't until I started spending more time with Neil, and that's when it really started to affect my work and everything in my life.
Okay.
I would just sit around in later years,
like angry, disgusted with myself. My wife couldn't even be near me. Really? What'd she say? What'd she say?
Some of the time. Well, she wouldn't say anything. It was obvious why she was doing this. I mean, but I wouldn't get out of bed some days.
But she must have said that one thing to you. Like one time she said what to you? Just give me one thing, big thing she said. Stanley, you're a fraud. You know, you're a fraud. We were in a fight. You're a fraud. Blah blah blah. Like just be really mean to yourself through her. Like say the worst possible thing about yourself through her. But she did one time let me have it. Go for it.
One time she said to me, you chose this. You chose this for yourself.
Don't feel sorry for yourself.
Too late
you
now
have it all.
To start feeling bad about it. Yeah. And you have an obligation as an artist to continue your work. Fuck this. It's over. You can't do anything about it. It was hard to hear that. But we were spending less time together. She couldn't bear being around me because of the way I smelled, the way I looked. I wouldn't do even the merest everyday thing like brush my teeth or It was really
because you were having that. You were that depressed, really. You're saying you got to a point of that.
Depressed. I was full of self-recrimination.
Is that when? I mean, no offense, or not. You started drinking then, because you're drinking now. I mean,
yeah, I am drinking now. Yeah, I started drinking pretty heavily.
Okay, and why? What were you? So, what were you feeling? I mean, how would you describe this? You were feeling guilt, like you had let America down, or yourself down?
Self-disgust. Yeah, and
I mean,
I identified very strongly with what Neil was going through.
I mean,
and it infected me.
Well, I guess when
I was especially pissed at myself because I didn't feel it earlier.
Okay, right.
Why took me so long?
Right. Well, you were so enjoying the high life of Hollywood kingsmanship. I mean, maybe that blinded you. I mean, Neil only was up once. You know, he only went up once.
It all came back to the ego trip, the flattery of being told you're the only person who can do something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, that's the ultimate trip.
Right.
Artistic, creative trip.
So you were manipulated.
I was manipulated, but as my wife said, I made the choice.
But if you didn't do it, they may have sent up those astronauts and they may have been killed. Or they may have lost faith and lost the Cold War. I mean, do you ever think of the what ifs? I mean, do you? What if you didn't do it?
I don't know the what ifs.
Well, if you didn't do it, they may have gone, or someone less talented may have fucked it up, and it might have been obvious it was a fake. That would have been a bigger embarrassment than even not going. Imagine that. Imagine it being detected immediately. I mean, here you are 30 years later.
What's so wrong about that?
Well,
it's just a matter of saving face. What you're saying?
It's both.
Saving face.
A is admitting we can't do it. B is faking it. C is being exposed for not being able to go and faking it poorly. That's even worse than faking it or not going either. You know what I mean? Like, that's the worst of it all. You're combining both failures. Because not only can you not go to the moon, you fucked up the facsimile of going to the moon.
It almost sounds as if you're trying to make me feel better about it.
Well, I'm just exploring the fact that, you know, it's interesting that it had to be made.
Around the fact that I perpetrated a fraud or helped to perpetrate a fraud.
Well,
and a major one.
I mean, the biggest, well, you faked the biggest achievement. It's like faking going to Everest. If you climbed Everest but faked it and climbed, you know, Mount Rainier in Seattle and said it was Everest, people would believe it, but you'd know it was untrue. And and I guess, is that what you're saying? Armstrong's problem was the fact that he was defined by this act that he never accomplished, and there was a guilt.
It's like faking the polio vaccine or something, you know? I mean,
you can't show
it's analogous with that.
It's like lottery winner guilt. In other words, like you get all this acclaim and all this stuff Neil Armstrong knows he'd go to the moon, and he feels shitty every day someone compliments him about it.
I can't even, and I know the man, I can't even imagine what he feels inside.
Right.
It's so all-consuming and devastating, apparently.
And you, because you'll die.
I feel only a portion of that.
Right. Well, you'll never. I mean, the films you've made are real, and they are. You know, you're famous. But
I have that to fall back on.
Right.
But what else does Neil have?
Yeah. Well, exactly. Because he went up once.
His identity, his very identity, his public persona, is centered around this achievement which never happened.
And never will happen. And never will happen.
And never will happen. Imagine what that can do to a person.
It's devastating. And we
can't imagine.
Well, we can't.
We can't imagine.
But we know, though, for a fact that he was fooled by the fact they kept saying it's going to be a couple of years. It's going to be a couple of years. They kept saying that. And at some point he must have realized it's not going to be a couple of years.
That's right. That's very well put. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay.
Yes.
And so at some point when he did realize that he wasn't going, I guess that's in the 80s or something, or I don't know when it was.
Maybe
but
earlier, yeah.
He must have had a real break. I mean, I don't know if he even had a breakdown, but I could see how that would be like the ghost of Christmas Past to you, just reminding you of your complicity in it.
Yes, exactly. And after a while, it's almost like pursuing someone for a date.
Right.
And they keep brushing you off, and you keep believing you will have another chance.
Hopeless romance.
Yes. Hopeless romance, very good.
And so Neil's a hopeless romantic
I should
about.
be interviewing you. You're very good at this.
Okay, thank you. Well, maybe
Expressing yourself.
I'll get hopefully 1/10 as successful as you.
Make a movie about you.
Yeah. Maybe we'll reverse it one day. But let me ask you this though: if you see this man deteriorate, feel guilty, a man who only wanted to serve his country, a man that wanted to do the right thing, a man who was part of a lie in order to continue funding the noble, authentic pursuit of this goal in reality, I mean, do you look back and just feel yourself conned? Are you bitter at the government for double-crossing you in a way? I mean, do you think they probably knew they would never pull it off? I mean,
yes, I mean, yeah, I felt used. I mean, I feel more used now than I did then. As I said before, I was so swept away by the challenge of it.
And is that part of what Eyes Wide Shut's about?
And that's part of the guilt too.
Is that the Eyes Wide Shut about those people that are in power?
Eyes Wide Shut is it's probably my most symbolic movie. It's on the surface about the sexual underground, but in reality, it's about secrecy.
And you're obviously referring in some ways to what you're talking about here.
I'm an expert on secrecy now, having dealt with NASA and the federal government.
And so now, as you sit here and say this, what should the average audience member think about this? I mean, obviously, how should they feel about it? I mean,
15 years after my death, whenever that.
Yes, and hopefully that will be 40 years from now. 20. Who knows? Hope you live a great long life. But when they do encounter this, and if it hasn't been discovered by other means, then why should the American care about this? Why should America? You've said this. Why should they give a shit?
Any enlightenment on any subject furthers humanity.
It's important to know that the biggest achievement was a lie, and we still can do great things, but we should never lie about the great things we do.
What I just said was good too.
Good, fine. But ready? It's mankind's, and we shouldn't lie about such achievements,
And?
Okay.
Okay.
So do that again.
And,
so with the viewer, the reason why the viewer should.
And something perceived as the greatest achievement of mankind, when you find out it's a fraud, it never happened, of course that's devastating. It's news. It's important to know that. We have to know that. As destructive as that might be.